Anglo-Saxon term.
Okay. We want to have residual rights whenever you show it.
And we're admitting those who just arrived, and in 1 minute we're up and going. Thank you, Scott. Hello, Jan. Greetings. Nice. Ricardo, great to see you, my friend. All right. We have the full complement. 30 seconds and boom. I feel like that billionaire who's headed into space. Oh, what a great group. This is fabulous.
It's very bad to have so much money that you do stupid things like going into outer space. I mean,
it would be wonderful if he went into outer space.
astronauts are paid for it.
I think that would be great. I don't know why more people aren't encouraging him to go.
With my luck, I'd get air sick if I went up in one of those things.
Sick.
Hey, Leif, good afternoon. Nice to see you.
They don't tell you about that. When you go down to space, a lot of people get very nauseous.
Wow.
And away we go.
And you can't look at the horizon.
Old, new friends, esteemed colleagues, and welcome first-timers. I am Ron Gross, of course, and it's a great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of our two co-hosts, our regular Peter Gross, and a special host today, Dr. Elizabeth Cohn, who's Vice President for Health Equity at Northwell Health. Let's, if we could, start off our session with these wonderful faces with our traditional hullabaloo. It's our way of expressing appreciation to each other for showing up and looking forward to sharing experiences, thoughts, and feelings. So please take one full minute to look over those friendly faces on your screen, and on my count of 3, greet as many of them as you can by name with a shout and a wave.
Hello, Scotty Corley.
Jessica, Pat,
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, Ann.
All right. Now just give me a minute or two to. Hi, Sandy. Great to see you. Hi. And Monica. And Miriam. Terrific.
Hi.
Hattie, I'm wearing a hat for you, Hattie.
Oh, thank you. That's lovely. But all I see is your hat. I don't see your face.
Tilt the screen.
All right.
Brenda Media will be joining us today.
Well, that's very nice. I'm glad.
Hi.
Let me just take 2 minutes. Let me just take 2 minutes to review our simple procedures to maximize your enjoyment and participation. 1, kindly make sure your name appears on your picture on the screen. 2nd, use the...
Uh-oh, you're frozen.
You're frozen.
He froze.
You're frozen.
I think it's use the chat function to ask a question or raise your hand.
Okay.
And then mute yourself if you're not the one who's speaking, which is hard after we've just all unmuted ourselves. And I'll see if Ron can... if maybe he may have to turn off his video.
Can you put my name? Can you put my name? I can't put my name on. Could you put my name on it?
I did it already.
In the upper right-hand corner.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Elizabeth Cohn, weren't you on radio in the past?
I think Ron is talking again. There's 2 Elizabeth Cohens, so both health people, interestingly. Did Ron disappear? Oh no, there.
I got knocked out for momentarily. The reason we have 2 co-hosts is that I'm having trouble with the intermittent connection.
Ron, and I reviewed the putting your name in, using the chat function,
right,
and putting yourself on mute if others are speaking, so you can pick it up from there.
Perfect. Thank you. Since we're a full house, very happily, and a wonderful full house it is. Please make your first contribution succinct with 1 point, and then we'll cycle back and you'll have another chance for more. And to assure that this session will go until 4, but then to assure that everyone has the fullest opportunity to socialize and share a little more personally, we'll gladly hold an after party for 15 or 20 minutes. After we adjourn formally, we'll take a little comfort break, which I'll certainly need. And after that, we'll regather for another 20 minutes or so in order to be able to interact more spontaneously and intimately. Our session for this afternoon is titled Power in Our Lives, and we want to share our experiences, knowledge, and reflections on power, defined as the capacity or ability to direct or influence the behavior of others or the course of events. We hope the conversation will give us some fresh perspectives to answer the two questions asked about power by Audre Lorde, the great Black feminist thinker who always implored her students to ask themselves two questions. What is my power in this moment? And what is our power in this moment? And what we among the things we might want to share are one specific way that the exercise of power has impacted your life story, for better or worse. What has been a personal experience of yours in exercising power in a professional, civic, or personal situation? How do you feel about the role of the most influential public figures in our culture, like, say, Elon Musk or Dr. Anthony Fauci or Taylor Swift? And finally, how could power be more equitably distributed? As always, we're honored to start with a poem written especially for this occasion, as always, by our poet in residence, the distinguished poet hereabouts, Hattie Abbey, who has just been featured in a wonderful book, 13 Poets from Long Island. Hattie, let's have your poem, please. And I strongly suggest that you want to put it on speaker as you hear Hattie's poem for maximum impact. Hattie, thank you again for this great courtesy.
Okay, I'm happy to be here. The power of kindness is what I chose. My power of kindness comes from my love of people. I use acceptance and respect. In turn, I feel the love and respect from others. The power of kindness is reciprocal. I have been told by my friends that I have an aura about me, that just seeing me makes them happy. It's flattering, but I can't understand why. The power of kindness explains so much. It works at any age. I taught a baby to wave bye-bye yesterday. I looked into his eyes, moved my hand repeatedly. Bye-bye. In minutes, he smiled and kept on waving. His dad immediately videotaped the moment. It transforms strangers into potential friends. It's as if once I connect with someone, I can't believe I will never see them again. I make at least one new friend each day. The power of kindness is expressed in giving gifts to those who provide me with services or are really needy. I don't know why I deserve all this attention. It's just me. It's who I am. Perhaps it's who you are too.
Thank you, Hattie.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Perfect. Thank you very much. All right, the floor is open. Kindly put your name in the chat if you want to queue up to speak.
Oh, go
I
ahead,
put my name
Bob.
in the chat. I put my name in the chat. Do you see
Okay.
it?
No, but I can put it in. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob?
Oh, okay. I made notes and I have 6 things about power, but I'll only read 2 of them. The first one is that what did I say here? Power always exhibits some kind of direction. Power is about something. So if you have some kind of power, there are alternative directions. And that means that 2 people who exert power can clash. And that kind of explains why there's conflict in the world. The other one, the other note I have here is that, well, I think I already said this. Power is always about something. It's a specialty, and it's frequently look at people and they say, "Oh, they have a lot of power," but you might think about what their power is about, because it's going to be limited. Okay.
Thanks for kicking us off, Bob. Fine start. Thank you.
So
I would like to make a comment if on that, piggyback on that.
Okay.
This is Mitch Halper, so I thank you for thank everyone for allowing me to talk. So
Sure.
power could also be in your job description. It could be that if you're working and you have the power to do good or bad, could be, let's say, the President of the United States. And the person who I was thinking about was President Lyndon Johnson. Now, the author who wrote, again, I'm bad with names, she wrote the Team of Rivals about Abraham Lincoln. I think it was, again, I forget the author's name, it slips my mind. But he was very influenced when before he got into politics. I think he taught in a school where the children were poor. They didn't have, economically, they were not well off at all. And he told himself, and this affected him when he was a lot younger, that if he was ever in a position of power, he was going to help, he was going to do something about it. He was going to help people. Sure enough, when he became president of the United States, he was the one who signed the Civil Rights in the 1960s. So because of the influence that he experienced at a younger age, that's what molded him to do good things. Because power could be, you could do good or you could do bad things. As far as I say
Mitch,
for
thank you.
myself, what?
I
Hello?
was thanking you. That's a great start for us.
So Ron,
Let's get into other
we have in
voices.
the queue.
Doris Goodwin. Doris Kearns
Doris
Goodwin.
Goodwin,
wrote
thank
that
you.
book,
Yeah.
Team of
Great.
Rivals.
Thanks.
We have
Thank
in
you
the
very
queue
much. Thank you.
Gary, Sue, Pat, Larry, and Ricardo. So Gary,
Okay, I was actually going to wait, but nobody was typing their name in, so I threw mine into the hat. But there's also power in just being able, just in kind of an honesty and being able to see things. One of the videos, the TED Talks, the guy was talking about doing things locally, except that he was making assumptions that just didn't stand up to analysis. What he was thinking was local. It's not local at all, because a coffee shop in New York, a coffee shop in London, a coffee shop in San Diego, they all look alike because they're all being run on the same uniform global algorithm that designs them. And so he was failing to see many of his own assumptions, and it really undercut a lot of what he was saying, at least for me. So I guess another kind of power, it's not a lot of power, but it's just in recognizing your own and other people's underlying assumptions.
Thank you, Gary.
yeah, very well done. Sue, and then Pat.
Okay.
Sue, I think you want to try again, Sue?
Okay, hold on a second. Hold on a minute. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on a second. Hold on a minute.
Maybe
Okay?
we can go to
Hold
Pat.
on.
We'll come back to you, Sue.
We'll come back. Let's go to Pat.
Oh, muted.
Pat, you're
Pat, you're muted.
There you go. Try it now, Pat. Nope.
It's your space bar.
maybe we'll come back to Pat and Sue, and we'll go to Larry and then Ricardo.
You must make yourself.
Well, you can hear me, I'm sure. So at least I didn't disappoint you. Well, I'm thinking about how people can sometimes misuse power. I'm thinking Henry Ford designed a perfect car for the time, the 1908 Model T. And then in 1911, he adopted the assembly line for mass producing them. So he basically is responsible for the car industry. Yet he became a rabid anti-Semite in the 1920s. And his portrait hung in Adolf Hitler's office. So that's where power can go get perverted. Now, in our current time, I find the case of Elon Musk very strange. Now, what he developed is most best known for was SpaceX, which allows a rocket to return to Earth in one piece, saving a lot of money. That's certainly a marvelous invention. Another thing was his popularization of the electric car. Now everybody's making electric cars, but it was Musk who first made it popular, made it seem like a practical idea. And thus you think he's an environmentalist. So the question is, why would he buy into Trump? Why is he supporting him? And my conclusion, because he doesn't agree with him, but I think that he'd like to have what he perceives as a president that's easily manipulated. All he has to do is kiss up to him, say nice things to him, and Trump will give him whatever he wants. And I think it's a power play, and I think it's a perverted kind of power. So that's about what I have to say about that.
Thank you, Larry. Having written a book on Hitler, you are a qualified expert on that kind of power. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would love to hear, as I always do, would love to hear from Ricardo, and then we'll cycle back to Pat and Sue and see how they're doing with their audio. Go ahead, Ricardo.
Thanks a lot. Good to see you all. And power is the pivot on which everything hinges, and he who has the power is always right, and the weaker is always wrong. And so let me start with this quote by Niccolo Machiavelli from the book The Prince. And we know that there are different kinds of power. There's the power of ideas, and there is power in ideas, and there's the power of people being together. There's power in the crowd. And power in itself is neither good nor bad. It's how it's used that makes it one way or the other. Today I want to look at the power of money. And Larry spoke about my favorite guy these days, Elon Musk. And the power of money to buy results, to influence people and organizations, and also to shape outcomes and drive agenda. The question is, for whom? To what end? There's the power of money for the benefit of society, and I can give an example of the Grameen Bank in Bangladesh, which provides microcredit to women for them to create income-generating activities. And on the flip side, there's a power of money, not for the benefit of society, but for the benefit of an individual and his business. Case in point, Elon Musk. And he saw Twitter, now known as X, for its huge value and potential to act as a megaphone for his ideas, his business, and his interests. Elon Musk has 190 million followers on X, on Twitter, which is more than many countries in the world. Musk is a textbook example of why a democratic society needs laws and a literate population to curtail abuses of economic power and other kinds of power. So that's my contribution.
Thank you, Ricardo.
As ever, amazing. Pat, we wanted to go back and see how your audio was doing. Still,
I think it's maybe Pat, if you don't use your headset, if you just use the computer, I think maybe it's the connection of your computer and the headset. Try that.
See. Is this better now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Very good. I'll just lean forward a little bit, trouble hearing.
Thanks, Peter.
My focus on power has been work I've done in workplaces all over the United States, helping people deal with conflict and communication and change management. And I was influenced the most by my father, who in the early 60s, was the chief pathologist of the Cook County Morgue in Chicago. And he had to go up against the Chicago machine, and he won. And I can go into details later, but I realized the reason he won, he had a plan. First of all, he made sure his own behavior was impeccable, so no one could question who he was and what he did. The second thing is that in the way he treated people, including his employees and the media, people trusted him and liked him and wanted to support what it is that he did. He always told the truth, and he had the facts. And a lot of time when I was working with people who wanted to be more powerful, influential in their workplace, I had to make sure that they would keep to the facts. They wouldn't exaggerate. They knew the difference between a fact and a feeling. And then finally, he was ready to lose. And he told the family, because it would have appeared on the front page of the Chicago papers, that he was going to defy the Chicago machine, but if he lost, and Mayor Daley had the power not just to fire my dad, but to take his medical license away, that it would be okay. He said, your kids are going to be fine, and there's many ways I can make a living, and you're fine. And then when he confronted the machine, it wasn't just him standing alone. And I find that when people want to, let's just say, in my experience, confront their workplace in difficult situations, I help them make a plan together. So they're not just one person acting out or yelling. And I had some success over the years helping people become more powerful. To the question of how do we make power more equitable, I always believe it's about teaching individuals, even if it means one at a time, the skills that are needed to become more powerful. And using my dad's example, I was in several situations in my life where I had to, in effect, speak to power. And I had the plan, and I was willing to fail. And I think that's what I think of when I think of power.
Pat, I've known you about your work for 30 years or so, and that's such a telling summary of what you've learned and what you've done. Thank you.
What was your father's name? What is your father's name?
Harold Wagner, Harold. You can find, if you have access to something like newspapers.com, you can find a lot of stories about his work from about 1957 to 1963 from the Chicago Tribune.
Amazing.
And things. So I grew up in a CSI family. Ron, I know how to kill everyone here and not get caught.
Thank you for sharing that. That was really, really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that, but also for not killing us. Let's see, Sue, we wanted to.
Don't mind if we don't invite you to the picnic, though.
Yeah. Sue, how is your audio doing now? Okay. Maybe we'll go to Steve, Lee, Peter, Monica, and I'm going to add Dana. So, Steve.
Yes, hi. I assume I'm the only Steve on this call today?
Yes, Steve. Uh-huh.
Okay, right. And I hope this is full face enough for you.
I'm
generally the kind of person that's in your face, so I don't want to disappoint. But I couldn't say no to Ron. I have been a little MIA lately, but in any event, what really struck a chord with me is that power really has had a lot of impact on me personally. Clearly, we could talk about powerlessness of all of us, or in some way, shape, or form. But I guess my personal history was when I was in law school. I won't get too granular, but I traveled with the Attorney General of the state of New York while I was in law school. He was kind of an old school politician named Louis Lefkowitz. And it taught me a great deal, not the least of which was just remembering people. And I guess that accelerated my schmoozing skills, which I've since used. And through a strange twist of fate, to me, powerlessness were people that were, targeted during the Holocaust, Jews and others. And my mother was one of those people, and she survived with two of my uncles. So I think I was raised to not want to be powerless because it could save your life. And in my father's case, he came to America in 1939 from the same country, Latvia, and he was able to succeed. And that taught me that the saying, when we talked about some of these billionaires, I learned in life that they call it the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. However, it's also true that we are, as individuals, we have a lot more power than we realize. And to keep a train of thought here, when I was with the Attorney General's office, I clerked in the Charitable Foundations Bureau. I took it upon myself to create a foundation about the Holocaust in 1975. And I'm not known for my humility, but trust me when I tell you, if you had said to me at that time that I was going to leverage that into a presidential appointment, I would say no, but I did. And I was on the presidential panel, as I've told many of you before, that built the Holocaust Museum in Washington. And that elevated my sense of power that I had to navigate at the highest levels in the Washington government. And what I realized is that politics is the same, whether it's local, state or national. It's about showing up. It's about presenting what you want. And if you're lucky, people say, you know what, this person's probably not going to give up. So let's go with that, which leads me in closing to the fact that power comes in the form of persistence. And that to me is something that is very central. So that's sort of my overview as to how I feel about power.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. I'm on mute now if I can talk.
Sure. Is that Sue?
Yep.
Yes.
Go ahead, Sue.
To me, it's looking at people as the other. Like Hitler looked at Jews as the other, and so he could kill the other. In Vietnam War, they looked at the Vietnamese as the other, so they killed the other. What happened now in Palestine and Israel? First, they killed Jews on October 7th, and now Netanyahu has killed thousands and thousands of Palestinians in Gaza. So when you look at the other and that you can kill them in any war, it's a very bad misuse of power. We have to realize that they're all people and have compassion for them and not kill them. That's what I thought of. That's what I thought of. I can't think of anything else, but that's what I thought of now. The power of now is that don't look at the past in your life. Just go from now to the future. That's what I thought of too.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you. Lee?
Hi there.
I had a poem. I had a poem to read.
Okay.
Do I have time to read
your
that poem?
Please.
Okay, hold on a minute.
Maybe we should have could we have the poem at the end? What do you think, Ron?
Yes, please.
We'll have it at the end, Sue. Go ahead.
Okay.
We have a pretty full queue.
Hi again. So good to meet you all. This is such a great turnout, Ron and Liz and Peter. What a great job you guys are doing. Just wanted to kind of give a quick thing. One is that I don't know if it's power so much as how can we get along better has been kind of one of those driving questions in my life. And power is certainly one of the inquiries that's part of that. And I've been, of course, some of you may know that I'm active with, I have two companies, one called Future Pathways and the other one called Life Pathing. Life Pathing deals with personal empowerment and Future Pathways is social empowerment. And I've been working in this think tank now we've done work for over 2-3 decades now, and we partnered with some great organizations. So one of the things that happened this week is that you mentioned Eric's video and book in the posting. And I remember I've known Eric. That's the guy in our video for the prep for this program. I've known Eric for about 10 years when we were both part of the Aspen Institute's program on Better Arguments, which is a wonderful program for people to overcome polarity. Wonderful program that he co-created. And I really value his stuff. So as it turns out, I've been challenged by some of my colleagues to finally put some of my stuff in that I've been thinking about, writing about, and collaborating with others into a series of essays that we're going to publish on the platform called Medium. And I've asked Ron to share the draft of our first posting, which is called Reimagining Social Power. So I'd be really curious to how you all feel about that. And that will be the big picture, 30,000 feet of how power works as a system across the world and in our everyday lives. And then after we do 2 or 3 essays on that, we'll do a series on personal empowerment and what that works like. And then, of course, how they all work together. So this is the culmination, as they said, of several decades of collaborative research. And of all the groups I know and all the networks I'm a part of, I've been so excited to share it with this group. So I do look forward to your thoughts and ideas and criticisms as we explore that together. And I really am thrilled to have this opportunity to be with you. So thank you for that.
Amazing.
We are
Amazing,
honored,
Lee.
Lee.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Ron. Should we go to Peter? And then the current queue is in the chat. But Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on what Steve said, because I thought it was so interesting, because we seem to, the first couple of comments, and I think rightly so, pointed out people who people who are famous, people who we see as powerful, but they're not individuals. They've become, they're so powerful, they've become now celebrities. And so it's hard to relate to them. But I thought that Steve's example is such a great one of power coming from persistence. And it occurred to me that really the thing about it is that people who, I think it's very easy to see people who are looking for power for its own sake. That seems like a dangerous process. But for someone like Steve, who had a vision, of a nonprofit, he didn't get into it to get power. He got into it because he had a vision of something he wanted to get done. And the persistence of that vision eventually gave him a certain amount of pull, as a metaphorical power. And but I think that really is something that's a way that I think we can all relate to where our power may lie, which is in picking a vision bigger than ourselves that is motivating. I'm reminded that Anthony Robbins, the motivator / huckster, his first book was called Personal Power, and the idea that if you could get motivated around something that was bigger than yourself, that would keep you moving, keep you motivated, then that's one way in which you can actually begin to express yourself in the world beyond your skin.
Well, thank you for those beautiful comments, Peter.
Really nice. Thank you. Monica, and then Dana.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was thinking about power as changing our life. With the appearance of the internet in the year 2000 and up to now, I have perceived this power of the internet as a power to transform life of almost any person. But in what way? This is the question which I ask myself. Maybe it's a power of transforming life and duplicating life, because it speculates not necessarily people, but maybe a human need to be more, to be better, to be among others. And I think that this power, which is exercised by modern technologies with the invention of the internet, somehow imposes new ways of interaction that change at such a high speed that if you don't follow them, you risk isolation. And of course, we have lots of positive examples of the power of exercise by modern technologies. And it comes to my mind the example of with the invention of the e-reader, which practically brought home the whole library. And I could access any book, having open access to knowledge, to easily finding books, which maybe previously I've been waiting for months. But I was also thinking of a different kind of power, that of the internet, which has created a new world, social media, that forces us to have a virtual life in addition to our real life. And this is the duplication which I mentioned, which is mostly made with sacrifices, or maybe it's a matter of perception because the new generation seems to be ready for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Dana?
Thank you. I am in awe of the esteemed audience I'm around, and I feel much on a smaller scale, though you can see that big picture with AI coming into our lives and what power is going to be changed to all of us. And how long it's going to take Elon Musk to reach $1 trillion and what he's going to do with his money. But we are in this big world of powerful people wanting to keep their power. But when this topic came, I thought of the small micro part of my world, growing up in the 60s when everything was changing and people wanted power. Black people wanted their power. Women wanted their power. And I was in the world of childhood where children wanted their power. So it changed how our parents perceived child rearing, because we as children no longer were subservient to, whatever mommy or daddy says we have to do. We were like, oh, everybody wants power. We want power too. And I can remember very distinctly the first time I realized that was in school. All of the girls had to wear skirts. Now, I didn't go to a private school. I went to a public school, and it was Greenwich Village. It wasn't like, the middle of Stamford, Connecticut. And all the girls were required to be in skirts. And all of a sudden, when all of this power thoughts came to us as a collective group, the girls in the school said, one day, this day, and we picked the day, we said, we're all going to wear pants, and we're all coming into school in pants. And we did. And that changed the rules of the school. They could no longer keep us from going to school because we didn't have a skirt on. And they said, well, that makes sense. It's okay, and things were changed. But I think truly the advent of all of that power change in our culture and our society changes how you think, changes your think space as an individual and also as a group. And the groups that want power know that they can get something in a group a little differently. And that's good in a lot of ways. It causes conflict sometimes, but it's good in a lot of ways. That's my 2 cents.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Excellent, Dana.
Bravo, Dana. It took me a minute to unmute myself so that I could reflect. Thank you.
Jessica?
Hi. So first I want to echo all that other people are referencing. Like I definitely can't rise to the eloquence and wisdom of some of your contributions. So I really appreciate this opportunity to be here and listen and learn from you all. But when I first was thinking about this and how I wanted to contribute, I thought I was going to be super cynical and talk about like human nature's like insatiable innate desire for power and oppression over other people. And we have Elon Musk, who is like has all this money and he's one of the most powerful people in the world. Yet every time he speaks or opens up his keyboard, it's like he's throwing darts at the dictionary and like he's not making any sense at all. So, but I'm going to go back to kind of like the same theme of Hattie's poem, The Power of Kindness, and then Sue's remarks about the power of compassion, and just share, I guess, a very brief story on the power of empathy, which is something that I've been thinking about a lot since I was a lot younger, and just how powerful and disarming empathy can be, and how like maybe you can't bring a pen to a knife fight or a knife to a gunfight, but you can bring empathy to a big fight, and it has, as I've seen it can have a lot of impact. So just briefly, I was like in my first week, I went away to undergrad, and I had just come out of like a dysfunctional family situation. So here I was like on my own, and I'm like, ooh, I have unfettered power now, right? Because I'm away from that terrible situation, and I can do what I want. And and so I went for like a run in the middle of the night and didn't know where I was going, and I ended up in this unfamiliar area. and was accosted by a group of guys who put a knife to my throat and said, like, give me all of your money. And I think the intention was to scare me, but based on like the comparison of where I had just come from, I had all this empathy for them, and I started talking to them and trying to use my voice and sharing a story of how like I had come from a traumatic situation and maybe they had too, and maybe we could put down the knife and just have a talk. And we sat down and had a talk, and I treated them like human and tried to instead of demonizing them and reacting with fear and fighting back like they might have expected, I kind of was like the salmon swimming upstream. And I think it like totally confused them, but then disarmed them. And yeah, so that was an example of the power of empathy actually saving my life. And they ended up being cool guys. And after that, I've really tried to focus on how to humanize people instead of demonizing them, even if we disagree wildly. So
Wow, that's great, Jessica. Wow.
Wow, that's
Thank
quite
you.
a story.
Thank
That
you,
is.
Jessica.
If I ever go into a really bad neighborhood, I want you on my side.
Yeah, that's really something. Bob Pan, you have a hard act to follow.
That's all right. Pretty good, Jessica. Pretty good. I just wanted to say that here's another theory. Power is like a pyramid. It's pointed at the top. You can usually see it. You can't always see it. I mean, people, there's contradictions to that. But if power is like a pyramid, there's always a level underneath it. People are mentioning Elon Musk. He has a certain personality, but right underneath it, that personality and his desire is the money. So you can look at the levels that are underneath it and attack that. In the case of money, I think the only way to attack it is to tax it. A better example of a pyramid is those who are running for president of the United States. They couldn't do very much as individuals unless there was a lot of levels underneath it. Okay, of course, at the bottom level is the vote, which counts for something too. But that's at the foundation. So you can take a look at it in case of running for president, all these different levels, and if you can identify them, address each one of them, and see what you can do about it.
Well put, Bob. Thank you.
Ken and then Scott.
Yeah, well, I'm thrilled with Jessica's story there. I'm curious if she's familiar with Marshall Rosenberg's work in nonviolent communication, because in his work he talks about situations exactly like that, where people were disarmed by the vulnerability and that quality of connection and that empathy. And in the notes I mentioned, like the power of trust. You know, it's that quality of connection that establishes a kind of trust on some level of familiarity or a quality of connection that is disarming. It's disarming. So thank you for that really powerful personal story. I guess I just wanted to offer, I'm watching Sopranos for the first time. I'm going to assume 80% of the people on here are familiar with the series. And in, I think, season 4, he's attracted to a woman who lost her leg, Russian woman. She doesn't have a leg, and he perceives her as having this miserable life, but he's attracted to her because she's happy. And I realized during that episode, that's the theme of the entire series. Here's a guy in therapy. He's a mob boss. My fourth grade teacher said, you could be president of the United States or a mob boss. And I didn't realize that at some point they become merged into the singularity and be one thing. But the idea being that these are people with a lot of political power, conditional power, and the power even to make people happy, right? He gives people money, so he has, and yet the one thing he doesn't have is the ability to be happy regardless of conditions. And that's what I meant about unconditional power, to be able to choose our state, internal, psychological, emotional, physical states, and move forward in the world. And in terms of the power of now, I understand the power now is being in the present without letting go of the thoughts, the conditioned, behaviors, thoughts, algorithms, and just being present and choosing. And then from that spot, we can choose a state. So anyway, The Sopranos, if you haven't seen it, and if you have, maybe it's another good watch. Anyway, we're enjoying it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Amazing. Scott and then Jan.
Okay, well, one thing I think hasn't been mentioned is that power can also be rather deluding. There are plenty of people in the world, I'll use Musk as an example, who believe that their power can protect them from everything. You know, how many people, all the billionaires bankrolling Donald Trump, who for some reason don't realize that he will stab them in the back the first chance he gets, and that, or all the people who've worked for Donald Trump, who are amazed, who are drawn to his power, think they have it for themselves and are amazed when they're backstabbed, or the people, or the billionaires who go to a great extent to avoid having environmental regulations and will be utterly amazed when our air completely vanishes and they die of lung cancer. At the end of the day, we all do. There is not enough power anyone can get to avoid winding up in a graveyard. And a lot of people spend their lives not really realizing that. I'm someone who has very little power, but I can see that. And I think that ultimately, you know, we're talking about Tony Soprano or something like that, but there are people, a lot of people, Trump or Musk is a good example, who spend their lives pursuing power and the thought because they think it will make them invulnerable. But in the end of the day, they never are. And they all have to die. And they will, at least some of them, I like to think, under that wonder what it was all about, you know. So I've heard some millionaire saying that he blew it, but I forget which one. Wish I could. I'll remember in 10 minutes. Anyway, I pass.
Very fine, Scott. Thank you. Needed that.
Jan and then Janice. Jan first.
One type of power that hasn't been mentioned yet is the power of being a parent, especially of a newborn and the first few years of life. You have immense power that has to be used wisely. It's not always used wisely. I had great parents. I was very fortunate there. I tried to be a good parent, and I hope I was. And with that power, when my youngest was born, I just looked at the baby and said, I have responsibility to one extent or another for this living human being for at least the next 18 years. And that, with power comes responsibility. And we can't lose sight of that either, because we have to use that responsibility wisely. Now I have grandchildren that I spend most of my time with, and they're young and impressionable, and maybe I have some power there too. So I think all of us as parents or grandparents, aunts and uncles, that sort of thing, can have immense power and put it to good use with the children of the world.
Thank you very much.
I love that. And there's a great quote in the chat from Sue as well. Sorry, Ron, go ahead.
Also reminds me of the line in Hattie's poem about her encounter with a child, you know, and the significance of that moment. Just want to mention that Sandy and Anita have their hand up.
Yes, Sandy it's Janice right now, and then Sandy. But I don't know. So Sandy, you're after the next speaker. But Anita, is that your hand then? No, it's okay. Okay. So Janice.
Denise, okay. And I'm going to be quick. I hope you can hear me. 3 thoughts on power. The first one is the power of a nation building. I'm Jamaican, and I watched Jamaica come into being in 1962 on August 1st. And my grandparents and parents were nation builders. The power of making a country taught me a lot about my authority in the world on a daily basis. That's the first one. The second one is I just want to offer two books that I have found profoundly helpful to my understanding of the power of forgiveness. The first is entitled Azim's Bardo, and it speaks to a father losing his son, his Middle Eastern son, to gang violence. I think it was in Chicago. And he joined forces with the killer's grandfather who was raising him, a youth, African American, and the two of them created a foundation called the Tariq Foundation, which I think is a beautiful example of how power can morph into something beautiful. The last example I'll give is the Amy Beale, brilliant American young woman who went to South Africa as a Fulbright scholar, and the Black youth decided to kill the next white person who crossed their path, and that was Amy Beale. Her mother, Linda Beale, went to South Africa, met with the killers. They all served their time. Two of them became members of the leadership of her foundation dedicated to her daughter. She met with the families and said, how can I not understand the power of love and forgiveness? That's what I wanted to share today. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice.
Thank you.
Very powerful, especially with the news today from Haiti.
Yes.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Sandy, Peter, and then Lee.
Well, first, I just want to say I'm fascinated by everybody's responses. And I just want to echo what I think Lee started out talking about, personal power, and quite a few people spoke about that too. I'm fascinated by the whole topic of personal power. How much do we really have, and how much don't we have? And I think as we age also, that comes into even more question. We finally can make decisions for ourselves, but then circumstances change. So how much power do we have with changing circumstances? How much power do we have over our mind to perceive those circumstances as something that we can manage and control? Someone before, I'm sorry, I think it was Ken, was talking about, oh, you have all this power and then so you die. Was it Ken who mentioned that? When we talk about dying, even that perhaps we have power over in terms of our attitude about death. Many of us live in fear of death, and therefore we never live in the moment. So I'm always now reflecting on the feeling of vulnerability is the sense of feeling powerless. And I'm very interested in reading Lee's work on personal power, because I think that's a very important strength if we don't come by it naturally, for us to foster in ourselves, especially as we become more vulnerable because of circumstances and change and society. And that's it. And I think my friend Anita wants to say something.
Yes, I'm very glad to be part of this discussion. It is so interesting to hear people's different perspectives. And what is, it's interesting how people approach the question, because of course there's political power, financial power, personal power, the power of the now, somebody said.
Yeah.
The power of the now that gets into both personal power and political power, and feeling that vulnerability or powerlessness, how one overcomes the feeling of powerlessness to regain one's sense of power, the individual power, the power to create change both within oneself and within the greater world. And I think that's something that we all struggle with at different times. So I thought that's something that's interesting. You cannot assume power without feeling powerful oneself, having a sense of oneself and one's capacity to do something, whatever it is. Whether it's to create businesses, to create art, you have to have still that sense of oneself being able to do that. And that's a form of power, personal power that pushes you in the world. That's all.
Thank you, Anita and Sandy. You're a mighty duo.
Patty, I know you have your hand up. And Peter has graciously allowed you to take his turn, and then we'll go to Lee, and then we'll go to Peter.
Thank you. I just think we didn't touch on the power of the clergy. I don't know if anybody brought that up, but I'm from a family of Holocaust survivors, and we came to the United States in 1951 when I was 5.5 years old. We lived in a terrible neighborhood, so my parents wanted me to be safe. So they took all the money they could scrape up and put me into a yeshiva so I would be safe. As it happened, the Orthodox rabbi with a PhD decided it was his job to molest little 7-year-old girls, and I was one of those little girls. And to me, that's a power that somebody has over you when you're a child, and it affects you forever. It doesn't go away, and I just wanted to mention that.
Hattie, that's so affecting. Hattie, thank you for that.
So sorry, Hattie. So sorry. You're better than him.
Yeah, he's dead now. He was murdered, I believe.
Karma.
We have about 5 minutes. We have Lee, we have Peter, and I know Sue has a poem that she wanted to close with.
Is it okay? Hello?
Go for it, Lee.
Okay. Thank you, Hattie. Hattie, we've had some parallel experiences in abuse, and I've also had dear friends who have had survived similar circumstances, including Holocaust. So if you want some time, I'd love to talk to you about some of the things we've done to be, I don't think it goes away, but it is transcendable. So I'd love to have that conversation if you want. So I open that possibility to you.
Okay.
I would like to be involved in that conversation as well. I'm interested in that as well. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm in the directory if you want to network with me, and we'll make a time. Okay.
Me too. Me too.
Somebody
So
has to do it.
you're all invited. 2 quick stories. One is by DeGrasse, the guy who does all the science shows. He does a wonderful series called Connections 2, which is based about how human beings have evolved. And he opens one of the episodes with a cave in India with a story of a city that was leveled by a mad emperor who, in the midst of all the horror, a monk in rags picked up a child and brought it to the foot of the emperor and said, "You can destroy all these lives, but you can't bring this life back. You have no power that has any meaning. What do you want to be in the world?" And the emperor gave up his empire and became a Buddhist, and is named Emperor Ashoka, and built Buddhist temples for peacemaking for the next 40 years of his life that lasted 500 years from that one conversation.
Wow.
Lee, great story. May I just interject? Lee just mentioned casually the directory. That's a little directory we have that can be available to you, where all the regular participants in these conversations put a little information about themselves and their contact information. Tomorrow morning, I will send you the morning after letter, and in it I will give you the link to the directory and invite you to be included if you would like. So please keep an eye out for that. And as you can see, it can prove very serviceable.
And I sent you my article too. One thing more, Sandy and Anita.
Here.
I just wanted to comment about the personal empowerment. That social empowerment and personal empowerment are interrelated, but they are also separate. And our work around it is quite surprising. The thread of personal power empowerment is much more tricky to thread and manage and lever than we imagine. And it takes great mindfulness of the individual, and even better if they had good support from the community. When you have those things in constellation, the nature of empowerment changes, both personally and socially. So I look forward to exploring that both on the personal level, but also how it works as a system to co-create together new possibilities, which is the mission of what we do.
Yeah, you're just raising a very good point that no kind of power exists in a vacuum. They're all interrelated in some shape or form. And
maybe that's the right place actually for us to end, because we're actually at the top of the hour. I know that some people we have the after party if people want to stay, but if people have 4 o'clock calls, we do want to be respectful of their time.
Thank you.
So we're going to keep the line open. We're going to keep the line open. And I know Sue wanted to share a poem, and maybe the discussion, that seems like a wonderful place to leverage off on the after party. So Ron, do you want to close us out?
Did you want Sue to, Sue, is your poem short? Sue with us? No, in that case, let me just, I want to thank each of you very deeply for one of the best sessions we've ever had. I can't tell you how much we appreciate it. Our next session, I'll make this very quick. Our next session is October 8th. I'll send that to you tomorrow morning too. In conclusion, we'd like to do our au revoir, in which, borrowing from Oprah's handbook, if you will look under your chair in which you're sitting, you'll find a bottle of champagne like this. On my count, please unmute yourself, and on the count of 3, give an au revoir, hullabaloo, shout out to your favorite conversationalist. So 3, 2, 1. Bye.
Bye, Gary.
Bye, Gary. Bye, Patty. Bye, Pat.
Ciao.
Bye, Jessica.
Peter.
Bye, Jen. Bye, Scott. Bye, Ron. Bye. Bye. Bye, Monica. Bye, Ricardo. Bye, Liz. Bye, Jamie.
All right, Peter and Liz, you are excused with our thanks. The rest of we are adjourned. If you have other business, and if not, let's take a 5-minute comfort break, and I'll be back here for anyone who wants to stick around for 20 minutes of socializing. Okay, great, thank you.
I don't have to read my poem, thank you.
Oh, you wanted? Yes, Sue.
No, I don't have to read it. It's okay.
Huh?
I don't have to read it. It's okay.
We called on you, but didn't get you.
Is it a long poem, Sue?
Let's do it when we come back. Let's do it when we come back after the break. Okay? Comfort break. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'll be right back.
Well, could you hear me?
Yeah.
If you can't hear me, don't answer me.
We can hear
Can hear you. Can hear you.
Well, I know about it. There's a poem about strength and power. It's very sweet. Never hit your mother with a brick, because it is a very dirty trick. If you want some exercise, poke your finger in her eye, but never hit your mother with a brick. Isn't that touching?
Who wrote it?
I don't know, but I first heard it by Ed Fitzgerald. Remember, there was that radio partnership, the Fitzgeralds, Ed and Beguine Fitzgerald?
Yeah, actually, I do, surprisingly and disturbingly. I do.
Yeah, they were on until the 1970s. They invented the talk radio format.
Yeah. And my mother used to listen to them sometimes.
Yeah, my mother did also. And being a mama's boy, I followed in her footsteps.
Oh, you muted, Leigh.
Pat, can you hear us now?
Yep.
because we missed you, and I do like that hat. So
Okay.
you're now going to be called my happy gardener.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay. So when you do the book,
It should be
remember.
Faux Gardener, F-A-U-X Gardener.
Okay. Well, you're the gardener inspirer.
That's closer. Thank you.
That's closer. Okay. I do like to name. It's kind of a playful thing. Ken, what part of the world are you in?
I'm presently in Tennessee at the moment. I'm originally from Long Island.
Very courageous man.
Sorry?
I want to see how courageous you are. Tonight is the debate. Are you going to be discussing the debate with your neighbors?
I would love, if there was a watch party that was intermingled, I would love it. Sure. I have no problem talking to people with various political persuasions. I enjoy it. I genuinely am curious and interested in finding universal language and common ground. I mean, can always look at a thing and find the differences, or we can find the similarities. It's not to be a Pollyanna, but it's to acknowledge that. Why would we be focusing on the stuff that divides us and stirs people's anger and hatred and division? Why wouldn't we focus on the things that we can find some common ground on?
Very radical.
Well, I guess the answer to the question, though, is because we're stuck on our old beliefs and conditionings and ways of thinking and perceiving. And
well, I find if I want to find out somebody's opinion who I disagree with, I just say, I'm not going to get mad at you. I'll still be on good terms with it. I'm just curious what your views are. Then they'll explain their hateful ideas, and I just smile and say, okay.
And what I would do is I'd find something in there that is genuine, like some value they have that they hold precious in a universal way that I do too. You know, they care about their family. Say they care about their family. They might have what I consider an unfortunate strategy to try to meet their family's needs, you know, and I might express my genuine concern about that. And also that I could be wrong. I could be off. It might, just be humble because that's real, right? We don't know everything. We don't have all the answers. So
are you explaining how you survive living in Tennessee?
Well, and enjoying it. And enjoying it. That's the important thing.
Ken, can I say something to you?
Sure, of course, please.
I don't know if you can see this photograph. Can you see it?
It's on an angle.
Yeah. One more time. I can't see you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a rabbi.
No, his name, that was my husband passed away in February. And I think he looks like Ken, and his name is Ken. My husband's name is Ken.
That is your husband. He ran away to Tennessee.
His name.
Well, I'll share this one other thing. The reason I'm interested in that conversation is because that was a life-changing thing for me as well. My fiance had shared a story about being sexually abused by her pastor. She was still in that church. I was going to that church with her at the time in Western Massachusetts, and all I wanted, we talked about it for a year, because she was carrying this guilt, the burden. She said, "Oh, but if I try to address it, it'll destroy the church," and so she felt responsible for holding the church together.